Hi, so I'm going to show you how to export your layouts from Storyboard Pro so that you can work on them in Photoshop or in Toon Boom or in Procreate or however you want. So it's really handy to make sure that you're working at the correct size, especially if you have camera moves in your backgrounds and layouts. So what you're going to do, so my backgrounds aren't like super polished here, but what you can do is say like, okay, here's my rough layout, right? And you can go to File and go to Export, and there's an option for layout right here. So what it's going to do, it's going to export out a still of this scene, and it's basically going to be at the resolution that you need, which is 1920 by 1080. So depending on your aspect ratio and your project settings here, it's going to export the background image that you need for this. So if you go to layout, it's going to bring up these options. It's going to ask, where do you want to save this? I'm just going to show it on my desktop because I'm lazy. I don't have a project folder for this yet. Actually, I lied. What I could do, this is scene 3, and I'll go over this in another demo, but I created a Toon Boom setup of all my folders. So this is shot 3, and I can just throw it in my environments because it's an environment. So I'm just going to put it in here. You can already see I already exported it here, so it might be cranky at me. So the file format, you can do Targa, Photoshop, JPEG, PNG. Since it's so rough, a JPEG is fine. Full size. So again, I want to make sure that my layout is the correct size. So I want full size, project working color space, sure. If you wanted to give it a little bit of buffer on the outside, you could expand the render area by however percent you want. And if I had a camera move, which I'll show you next, you could print the camera frames and stuff. So I'm just going to go current scene, export. It's going to be like, you want to override it? Say yeah. And you'll see here, it's just a JPEG. And if I open it, it's just created a 1920 by 1080 still of my scene. So I could take this into Photoshop or Procreate and basically start building out my layout from this reference, right? Another way is the way that this actually works really well is if you have camera moves, right? So you're like, well, I have this camera move and I don't quite know how big my layout needs to be in order to accommodate this full camera move, right? So here I have a camera pan, right? So I'm going to go to File, Export, Layout. I want it to be my current scene. And here, again, I'm going to pick the correct folder. This is actually in shot 5. So I'm going to put it in my shot 5 folder. Again, I've already done it here, so it's going to yell at me. JPEG, full size. Again, I can either print the camera labels or print a frame for each camera keyframe, but I just want to print the camera frames and labels and go export. It's going to go override it, say yes. It's going to go, okay, I did that. And again, here, what it's going to do is it's going to export this. So it's going to show me where the endpoint is, right? And where the endpoint is, which is this, right? And it gives me the full length of my layout. It's already sort of exported at the size I need. So you don't have to do any math, right? I just have to do a layout that is the length of this pan, and that is, it's done for you, right? So if you have a camera pan, this will give you exactly how wide and how tall that camera move needs to be. Same thing if you're doing a diagonal move, it'll basically map that out. It'll show you exactly what you need to do in your layout. Now, here's also a very important part. So say you have a camera, you're close in on something, like say you have a city, right? And you go from like a wide shot of the city and you want to zoom into someone's like apartment, right? Or vice versa. You have like a shot of someone's window and you want to pan out to a bigger city. If you do that full city at 1920 by 1080 and you try to scale it up, if you're not working in vector, it's not going to scale correctly, right? So here is an example. I'm not going to be doing this, but I just wanted to kind of, show you. Like here is where hold on. So here I have her going from, I think I did it backwards, but basically I did a very close up of her hands, and then I'm going to pan out to that bigger one of her. Totally flipped it. But again, you see the A and the B, right? They're zooming in, zooming out. So say you have a scene like that. I'm going to select the scene. I'm going to go to File, Export, Layout. This is scene 6. I'm going to find my scene 6. And again, you could put it in any folder you want. I just think that it makes sense to put it in the relevant layout. You can set up your layout folders however you want. This might not be the best. And then again, here I want to scale image up to the smallest camera frame. What that means is that that closest zoom up, that closest zoom in that you're going to have, say the picture of like someone's window, that's going to be 1920 by 1080, and then it's going to scale up everything else out of that, right? So you're going to have a really big composition depending on the sort of amount of your zoom in or zoom out, but you'll sort of know what resolution you need for that close up as well as the wide shot, right? So sometimes when you have real complex stuff like that, you'll actually switch layouts halfway through. If you do like a wipe with a foreground element, it's a way to kind of switch it. So you actually have two layouts. That kind of gets into complex layout background stuff. But here, it's just really good to know because you know what size your layout needs to be. So I'm going to scale up to the smallest camera frame. That's very important because otherwise it's just going to be 1920 by 1080. And I want to make sure that I have the full composition so that 1920 by 1080 is the closest zoom that I have. And then go export. It's going to yell at me because I already have something in there. And if I open this, so this is a much bigger composition. So this should actually measure 1920 by 1080, right? I don't know why it's, and I limited the full scale resolution, which is why it's not quite that. But again, you sort of know, this is the full scale of this composition is now like 4,000 by 2,000, right? Because I limited it because you don't want to kind of get too insane. But it just keeps you from working on a huge layout and then having it not be the right resolution, right? So that's really, really helpful to kind of set up these layouts from Storyboard Pro for you to work with. Cool. So and then to kind of add them in, you'd add them into either, you composite them together either in After Effects or in Toon Boom, depending on how you want to do that. And we'll go over that later. Cool. Thank you so much.